written various papers before Chamber of Tax Consultants, all Gujarat Federation of Tax Consultants, WRC and ICI. Without wasting any further time, I will request our speaker to start with the second session. Thank you.
Good afternoon, friends.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I think one thing you deserve also and we would like to share with you as a memento from our side.
Even otherwise, I would have started. Before starting with my topic, there's one good news I would say from the department side. Yesterday, CBDT has issued one office memorandum which says that the subject is further steps toward a non-adversarial tax regime. And in that is there in today's newspaper also. And the CBDT has directed the subordinates not to make high-pitch assessments unless the fact supports the case. Then be time-bound. If you are calling somebody at a particular time, see to it that you take him only. Otherwise, people wait for hours and hours outside the cabin or the officers are not available. Then they also said that don't give unnecessary adjournments, which is of course important from our side, because if we just keep asking frivolous adjournments time and again, then perhaps they may try to make ex parte assessment. And they have also said that don't file frivolous appeals. And this is in line with the Bombay Tribunal and other tribunal judgments, where they say you just keep on filing appeals without any merits of the case. And many other things are there. This may be dealt with by Atul also. So this is some good news for us if they implement, subject to implementation. Now coming to my topic, I have chosen some 4 or 5 different issues which according to me are going on currently in all assessment or reassessment proceedings and which are common to maybe all of us. The first one, yes, regarding the issue of suspicious dealers, which I think in all offices of chartered accountants there must be at least one case with respect to this particular issue. Now in this I have listed some 16-17 points from my side which are required to be dealt with. So the first one is take the case of a regular assessment proceedings. That is a proceedings where a normal scrutiny notice was issued in time, everything is proper, and he takes up this issue. Now here there are 2-3 points. First, maybe the assessing officer issues a notice saying that these are the names of the parties, purchase parties, which are also there in the list of VAT department. So bring all other details with respect to this, or why you want to say this is not your bogus purchase. That may be one aspect. The second aspect may be that the assessing officer may not deal with the VAT requirements at all. In the sense, he knows at the back of his mind that yes, there is a list, and from the list he has also taken out the name of the parties, but he doesn't refer to it. Simply he just says, randomly he may ask, okay, these are the purchase parties, bring all the details, etc., for my verification. This is the second aspect. So coming back to the first aspect, if he is referring to all those things, parties listed in the website of the VAT department, and if he also refers to any other documents or details, then how to proceed about it. The first is obviously, it is only simply asking us to file confirmation or putting the parties, etc., which perhaps in 99.99% of the cases may not be available at all. So whatever documentary evidences are available with the SSC, at least file those evidences. And if he is referring to the list and any statement, affidavit, etc., then stick to that point, saying that now you give me the details and all those things about what they have stated or what statements they have given, what affidavits they have filed, so as to respond to the notice properly. But in any of this scenario, it is the onus on the assessee to prove its purchases. The assessee cannot say that, okay, I have a bill, I have a bank payment, so these two things are sufficient to prove my purchases. No, that is not enough. The most important factor in all these cases is movement of goods. The delivery of goods, whether it was received by the assessee. Proving that is very important. If you can prove that, then of course your case is far much better than others. Because one thing what I have noticed in all these 2-3 years since the time this has started, I have not come across even a single case where the AO goes beyond and goes to the supplier's bank accounts and trace the money and all those things. I don't know why they are not going in that much further. They are not making those investigations. So that part, if they are not doing it, is of course good for the assessee. But as far as assessees are concerned, delivery challan very important, transportation very important. If these two things are not available, then even though if you have made payments by account pay checks, etc., or even by you are just giving the bill copies, that may not be a sufficient evidence. Because producing the parties, not possible. Confirmation from parties, not possible. So in such a scenario, it is always better that you file some evidences with the AO. Now, of course, if the AO is referring to any other documentary evidences in his possession as received from VAT department or any other department, then you need to ask for copies of those and then respond accordingly. Ask for cross-examination, etc., etc., which even AO will not be able to give. So challenge the statement per se or the affidavit per se as to the identification of that party. In one of the cases when I was going through this statement, the statement recorded by the VAT department, the statement is of course the cyclotype copy and only the answers and all those things are written either in Hindi, English, whatever language they want. But otherwise the questions are more or less all stereotyped. Now, in one of these cases, in their first page itself, it was mentioned that the identity of party is not known. But the VAT department is recording a statement of some person and they themselves are saying that identity is not known. How is it possible? So see to it that you analyze those statements thoroughly, because if identity by VAT department is not known, how do we know that the person who has given the statement is the same person from whom we have made the purchase, or it is the same person who has issued bills? Let us say he has issued bills also. So if identity is not put, then how that statement is relevant at all? And the assessing officers are just blindly going ahead with those statements or affidavits received from either VAT department or their investigative wing of income tax. But otherwise, beyond this, they don't have anything. And that is precisely the reason that they are asking the assessee that you produce the parties, since it is the onus of the assessee to prove. And that is the reason I say that if it is a smart officer, he will not refer to all this. He will simply say, you have made purchases, prove it. Why he should refer to any extraneous evidences in his possession? You first prove it, because then the onus is always on the assessee. If he shows something, then perhaps the assessee would argue, now he is your witness, because you are relying on his statement, you are relying upon his affidavit, so now you produce him. But he may not do so. He may say, okay, simply you produce the parties, I want to verify this purchase, which is not possible in many of the cases. So this is as far as regular assessment proceedings are concerned. We'll deal it in detail as far as the case law's applicability and how it would work or not work, and just basic procedural part will just complete first. Coming to reassessments, legal aspects already dealt by Mr. Gopal. I won't deal in the legal aspect in detail. But once the notice is issued, as he had rightly pointed out, see the reasons. Because in many cases what we come across, because now only reassessments are going on vis-a-vis these bogus purchases. In many of the cases, the reasons are just vague. They only refer to either that as per the VAT department, these parties are bogus, you have made purchase from these 2, 3, 4 parties, so I have reason to believe that these are not genuine. Or they would refer that as per the information received from their DGIT investigation, these parties are bogus, so what do you have to say about it? Now, whether these reasons are valid reasons. So first part, as he already told you, to object it. Now, objection in this part, what I would rather say is that first of all, they will not give you any information. So point out that what information are you referring? Because in your reasons, there is nowhere nothing is mentioned about what information you have received. You just say some information is received that so and so parties are not genuine, or as per the sales tax website list, these parties are issuing bills. So if the information is of DGIT investigation wing, then what is the information? And without information, without having any tangible evidences, you just cannot reopen, because then the reason to believe is not of the AO. He is acting upon a direction of the investigative wing, which is not a valid reason. Because 148 starts with reason to believe and not reason to suspect. And reason to believe of assessing officer, not of any other third party. And that is the reason in all those audit cases where they just simply reopen on the basis of those audit information given by those internal assessing officers. That is why the courts have held that this is not reason of the AO. You are just acting upon the reason of some third audit party, and therefore we quash the reopening altogether. Same way, same analogy would apply here. That you are just acting on the basis of some information or something given by some third party. But what is that information? Have you made any further investigation to that information? Simply relying upon some third party information and issuing notices doesn't help. At least in the reasons recorded, you give what information at least you have received. Whether those statements were recorded, affidavits are there, and what is there in that statements, affidavits, you deal with all that in detail and give a detailed 2-page reasons, then yes, it's a valid reason, a proper reason recorded for reopening. Otherwise, it may become reason to suspect. Because even the list, if they are only relying upon the list of sales tax department, then what the list says, the heading of the list itself says list of suspicious dealers. So it's a suspicious for the sales tax department. And why suspicious? Because those parties have not made VAT payments. That is the only reason. There is no other reason for the list or the names in the list. Because as per 48.5, as far as the assesses are concerned, they are made to pay the VAT because they claim set off or whatever, and if the other party is not paid, then it is the assessing who has to pay the VAT. But the only reason for including a name in the list is non-payment of VAT. So tomorrow, let us say that he issues a reason, and at that point of time, let us also assume that list or that name of that party was there in the list. After issuing the reason, suppose that party makes the payment of VAT, his name will automatically be deleted by the VAT department. And this is happening. Addition is happening, deletion is also happening. Then what? Where does the reason stand? And this has actually happened in one of the cases which is recently going on. He had issued the reasons. We are objecting, we have already objected, saying that this party has already made payment of VAT. Where is the question of saying that this is a bogus party? And that party has also filed affidavit to the sales tax department that I am a genuine dealer. How you made my name in the suspicious dealers list? I have not paid those VAT as per the time schedule, but I'll pay it. Because of financial reasons, whatever reasons, I could not pay it, but I'll pay it. And he has filed an affidavit also. Because he is a genuine dealer. And therefore, the reason is vague. Where is the information? No information. Just a list name, so I am reopening. So it's a vague reason. Then even the information or whatever they are having, no further investigations. So again, vague reason. Tomorrow I may say anything, or I may put in a website something about some officers. Would that become final? It won't become final. And therefore, it is a reason to believe of AO and not of any other third party. Now we are also, if it is only relying upon the list, then it is a reason to suspect. Because the sales tax department itself is only suspecting these persons to be issuing bills. They are also not having any finality. Finality will come when they have recorded those statements, affidavits, etc., and done the procedural part. Otherwise, it is only a suspicion. So if you are relying upon those suspicious list, then what you are giving a reason is a reason to suspect. So challenge reopening notice on all these grounds depending upon the facts of the case. And then if it is proper or if it is properly recorded, then obviously is going to proceed with the assessment proceedings. Now whether regular or reassessment, now we have to deal with each and every case as it goes. So now take a case of a trading concern. Now trader is a party who is at the most advantageous position in all this bogus purchase issue. For the simple reason that if a trader has maintained stock records and he can prove that this material which has been purchased from so and so parties who have been called as suspicious dealers have come in my stock register, I have purchased it, and against that I have made sales. If these things can be proved, then of course your case is far much better that purchases have been made. Now, whether from those parties or from third parties, if we are not in a position to produce those parties or to give any further evidences other than bills or bank statements, etc., then it is for the AO to say and further investigate that this was not purchased from these parties but from some other third parties. Just simply making a statement in the assessment order that because you are not able to produce the purchase party or you are not able to produce delivery challans or all etc., and therefore you have not purchased the material at all, it won't sustain those type of orders, because your quantitative details will itself show that if you remove this particular quantity, then either your closing stock becomes negative or your closing stock will be obviously reduced, or if suppose that particular goods which you have purchased, it may have remained in your closing stock or partly in your closing stock, then obviously it will harm the closing stock position. And secondly, if there is an access, direct access is there, purchase and sales, then obviously you can definitely prove that if you are saying that my sales are genuine, then there has to be a purchase for making that sales. So as far as the trader is concerned, he is in a very better position if he can prove with stock records. But if he is not maintaining stocks, or if he is dealing in hundreds of items and he says that it is impossible to maintain stock, then again a very poor case or a bad case for him to actually prove that the material was purchased from so and so parties, unless he produces delivery challans, movement of goods, etc., etc. Then taking a case of a manufacturing concern, a manufacturer, very difficult case for him to prove because he is not dealing in these goods. That is, he doesn't have one-to-one access that purchase has come and this goods have sold to this party. But this goods would perhaps be raw material for a manufacturer and therefore goes in his consumption. So once something goes in consumption, it is very difficult to prove that goods had actually come in and gone to consumption, and more so difficult where it is of a very big concern or a very big manufacturer going into crores and crores of rupees. Because in that, if you are asked to prove, if you are having a turnover of let us say hundreds of crores, and if you are asked to prove even purchase of 1 crore or 50 lakhs, it would be very difficult to prove that it has actually come in and gone in your consumption records, until and unless you are maintaining proper and thorough stock records, proper and thorough consumption records, that from the stock received goods gone into consumption and all those records are properly maintained. Otherwise, very difficult to prove that. The only best point for a manufacturer to prove which remains then is yield position. If yield position, if you can show that if you remove these purchases, then my yield gets disturbed or it becomes absurd. So without purchasing, I could not have got this finished product. If that is also not in your domain, then the last resort perhaps could be GP-NP ratios. Here of course NP may not come, GP would come. So if your GP ratio, you can prove that in the years when no such purchases are made, and in the year when you are saying that some suspicious purchase is made, comparative GP would show if there is an absurd result if this purchase are removed. So normal trend of GP in that line of industry or your own GP ratios for earlier and later years where such purchases are not there. If that is comparable, then that may come to your rescue. Otherwise, a very difficult case for manufacturer. And more so difficult for a case where it's in a construction industry, a case of a builder developer who is purchasing steel, cement, etc., and all those things to prove is very difficult. Because how much bags of cement or how much sand or how much bricks and all those things you have utilized for constructing this building becomes very, very difficult. So for a builder or a person who is in construction line, a very difficult case for him to prove, unless he can show that GP becomes very absurd. So depending upon the nature of industry, one needs to prove this case before the assessing officer. But one cannot say that merely by producing a copy of purchase bill and a bank statement that you have proved your case. That will not help. Now take a case of a search or a survey. Because of this suspicious dealers, there are a lot of surveys happening, lot of search happening. A lot of survey and search has already been concluded only on because of these reasons. So let us take a case of a survey. If in survey proceedings, the parties have come only because of this bogus purchase issue, and questionnaires are asked either to the main officer or the main boss in the company or to their personnel looking after the purchases or the manager. And if in survey proceedings you make a statement and admit to this fact that yes, these are only bills and we had only taken bills and there is no actual delivery or actual purchase made from these parties, then very difficult to then fight your case in assessment proceedings unless and until you retract it. Because if you are yourself admitting to the effect that these are bogus purchases, then it is very difficult to argue your case at all. In search, again, depends what type of statements you are making and what evidences also they gather in survey and search proceedings. Take a case where no evidences are gathered by the officers. They don't get any evidence, either in survey or in search proceedings, but only statement is recorded. If it is not retracted, it's a very bad case to argue. But if it is retracted, obviously then you will have to prove your retraction, because just by retracting your earlier statement will not help. Then you have to prove with supporting evidences. So again, we come back to square one. If it is a trader, then you prove with your stock records, etc., etc. If it is a manufacturer, again you prove with your other records, consumption records, etc. But otherwise, in search survey, I would rather say don't admit to this effect as far as possible. Because once you admit, your case becomes very weak. Even then, if you retract and do a lot of things, because nowadays the courts and tribunals are look the cases as it is. Because if you have initially admitted, then the prejudice is already caused. So don't admit. You may say so many other reasons. You may say that these are maintained by my purchase staff or at site, they don't maintain records properly, and so on and so forth. But these are all purchases and made are genuine, and there is no bogus purchase or any such thing. And even otherwise, if at all there is something that you need to say, then you can also always throw upon this on brokers. Because in many cases what we have come across, the assessor says that they have made actual purchase, but they have made through brokers, so we don't know whose bill broker had brought. So in such situations, if there is any such person available, then you can always throw upon the broker. Or even if the broker is not available, still try to avoid admission. Either in assessment proceedings, either in reassessment proceedings, either in search or survey proceedings. Don't go for admission at all. Even if your officers may give you hundreds of good things, that if you admit, I will not levy penalty, I will not prosecute you, I will not do this, that, don't go by that. Because once you admit, then nothing can stop. Even if the assessing officer gives you in writing, I will not levy penalty to you, and still if he goes and levy penalty, it will be very difficult to argue that, look, he had already assured me he will not levy penalty, because there is no estoppel against law. It will go, the law will take its own course. So try to avoid admission as far as possible. Now, as far as statements and affidavits are concerned, what we have seen till date in most of the cases, maybe more than 95% of the cases, that these are only recorded by VET department. There is no such statement or affidavit recorded by IT department. So in such a scenario, one can always ask for cross-examination. Because if cross-examination is not given to you, then obviously they just can't rely upon those statements or affidavits. So that part would be out. So then what remains would be what evidences you have filed to prove your case. So ultimately everything boils down to your evidences. Now, having understood what can be done, what cannot be done by assessing officer and the assessee, what can be the implications of all these suspicious purchases? The first is the AO will make entire disallowance of your bogus purchases. The second is he may go by addition of only GP. GP either only on those suspicious purchases, or maybe he may reject your books of accounts and estimate your overall GP. The third point is he may go for an addition of peak amount. And then maybe even 40A3 addition, or alternatively he may say I may also make 40A3 if my earlier part is not convinced by higher authorities. And he may also make addition towards unexplained investment. Now, as far as recent trend is concerned, it has boiled down to making additions towards peak amount or to GP amount in many cases. In many wards now, AOs have themselves started making such additions because they have also realized just by disallowing the entire purchases where stock records are there, where other evidences are there, that stand may not hold good in higher forums and the entire disallowance would get deleted. So instead of that, it would be a better venture to go into a peak theory or to make GP additions, which may either be accepted by the assessee himself or which may be at least accepted at higher forums. So if he is disallowing the entire purchases, obviously a good case for the assessee to fight, depending upon the facts of the case, because as far as the recent trends are concerned, we are getting many good number of decisions where either the entire disallowances have been deleted by higher forums or they have been brought down to some estimations. But the entire disallowance part is not sustained by higher forums unless the case is very weak, in the sense that the AO has made a lot of investigation into the case and he has also investigated the suppliers' cases, traced down the amounts that has come back to the coffers of the assessee and so on and so forth. If it is such type of a case, then yes, the entire amount may be disallowed. But in most of the cases, that is not the case of the AOs as of now, and therefore you are getting a good relief at higher forums. Now, if we come to directly the case laws, because from case laws one would be easy to understand as to how and why this has either been deleted or it has come down to estimation. Now, first coming to the reasons, I have given in my notes some decisions wherein they say that only on basis of some information that this is bogus, you cannot just simply reopen and make the assessment. And these were cases where bogus bills were issued for taking long-term capital gains or some other reasons. So same analogy will be drawn here, because there also the reasons of AO was only that he relied upon the investigation wing that bogus bills were issued for taking gains or whatever. So here also drawing same analogy, if that is the only reason, then one can refer to all these decisions and point out that there is not a valid reason at all for reopening the case.
Sir, the Supreme Court decision related to this, because authorities are not looking to this local or high court.
Your AO will not look into it, forget the AO part. AO is going to make disallowance, addition, whatever he wants to make. Even if you give a Supreme Court decision, still he is going to make the addition. So all this what I have given is not for the AO. This will help you in higher forums.